Hello everyone, my name is Sarah Myers, and this is True Crime in Alabama, Huntsville Chapter, Episode 2, Corey Johnson. Alright guys, there are a lot of people in this story, so try to keep up with me. I'm going to do the best I can to not overwhelm you, but it's like 10 plus names at a time. Alright, some parts of this discuss murder and torture, so viewer discretion is advised. I named this episode Corey Johnson because he's involved in more than one case that we are going to discuss today, but he is definitely not the primary focus all of the way through. I tried to pull as much information together for this timeline as I could, but as always, I still just have so many questions, but let's discuss it at the end. In September of 1996, Michelle Hayden and Ashley Rutherford were engaged to be married and lived together with Ashley's aunt in Huntsville, Alabama. They lived off of University over there near Providence. On or about September 18th, 1996, Joey Wilson, Nicholas Acklin, and Corey Johnson went to Ashley Rutherford's house and acted like they wanted to buy some weed. They looked at the weed and left. Later, Corey came back and asked to see the weed again. This time, he grabbed it and left. Shortly after that, Lamar Hemphill, who was hanging out with Ashley, realized that his cell phone was missing. When he called the cell phone's number, Joey Wilson answered. Lamar then filed a complaint with the sheriff's department, alleging that his cell phone was stolen. As a result of the police report being filed, Joey Wilson was questioned by the police regarding the theft of the phone. Once Joey learned that a police report had been filed, he became angry. On September 25th, 1996, Michelle, Lamar, and their friend Brian Carter were watching television in Michelle and Ashley's room while Ashley was at work. Michael Skurchak and Johnny Couch, who were on their way to pick up Michael Bodette, stopped to visit them. Around 10 p.m., Joey Wilson, Nick Acklin, and Corey Johnson arrived and started asking who had filed a warrant against them for taking a cell phone. Lamar Hemphill stated that he did not know anything about a warrant and that only a complaint had been filed. Corey Johnson then started slapping Lamar, Johnny Couch, Brian Carter, and Michael Skurchak around. Using a Jack Daniels whiskey bottle, he hit Lamar Hemphill in the head and Johnny in the mouth. He also grabbed Johnny Couch by his long hair and repeatedly slammed his head into a dresser. At one point, Corey Johnson held Johnny up by his ponytail and Joey Wilson cut Johnny's hair. Joey Wilson also repeatedly stomped Johnny, who was lying on the floor. Sometime later, Michael Bodette arrived and was told to empty his pockets. A few times during these assaults, Nick Acklin took Michelle Hayden outside and made sexual advances towards her. Nick fondled her breast and repeatedly asked her to pull down her pants. Joey, Nick, and Corey were all armed with pistols. At one point, while Nick and Corey remained armed, Joey laid his gun on a table and dared these poor children to grab it. He also held his gun to Michael Skurchak's head and asked him about the warrant. During the evening, Joey made some of the males take off their pants and give them their licenses. Around 11:20 or 11:30 p.m., Ashley came home from work. Then, Joey, Nick, and Corey questioned him about the warrant and warned him not to lie to them. They made him take his pants off, and Joey took 2 necklaces from him. These men yelled at Ashley, slapped him, and spit in his face. Additionally, Nick Acklin put a gun in Ashley's mouth and made him gag. One time, Michelle told Joey to be quiet or he would wake up Ashley's aunt. But Joey responded with threats of taking care of her if she did wake up. Supposedly, as the violence escalated, Corey tried to stop the other 2 men, but they made fun of him. Finally, Joey Wilson told Nick Acklin that if he would shoot the first one, Joey would shoot the rest of them. Shortly after the comment, Nick grabbed Ashley and shot him in the back of the head. Joey then started shooting. In a methodical manner, as each of the other victims sat and watched, Nick shot Lamar Hemphill once in the head, shot Johnny Couch twice in the head, shot Michael Bodette once in the head and once in the upper leg, and shot Michelle Hayden in the side of her face, in her arm, and in her abdomen. Joey Wilson shot Brian Carter 6 times in the neck and chest. Mike Skurchak ran out of the back door of the apartment without any gunshot wounds. After firing 19 times, Joey, Nick, and Corey left, and Ashley and his aunt telephoned for help. I think I forgot to throw that in there. So they shot Ashley in the back of the head, and he actually didn't die. He laid there and pretended he was dead, and while these men shot all of his friends and then left, and then after that he got up and went to his aunt and got her to help him call the police. Medical personnel and law enforcement officers arrived around midnight, and Ashley immediately identified Joey Wilson as the perpetrator. Around 12:15 a.m., officers apprehended Joey and Corey and found a revolver that had been used in the incident in their vehicle. Later, they found a Ruger P89, 2 Lorson pistols, another revolver, and Michael Baudette's driver's license at Nick Ackland's residence. At trial, one of Joey Wilson's friends testified that he had telephoned him from jail after the offense, talked about the incident, and told him to finish the job, which he took to mean to kill the surviving witnesses. One of Joey Wilson's cellmates testified that he had bragged about his involvement in the offense. He also testified that Joey had made statements about having friends on the outside who persuaded Michelle Hayden not to testify and who could take care of witnesses in the cellmates case. Lamar Hemphill, Michael Baudette, Johnny Couch, and Brian Carter died from gunshot wounds they sustained at the incident. Michelle Hayden and Ashley Rutherford sustained gunshot wounds but lived. These murders became referred to as the cell phone murders. Joey Wilson was convicted of capital murder for the killings of Charles Lamar Hemphill, Michael A. Baudette, Johnny Couch, and Brian Carter. He was also convicted of attempting to murder Ashley Rutherford and Michelle Hayden. After a sentencing hearing, the jury recommended by a vote of 12-0 that Joey be sentenced to death by electrocution. The trial court accepted the jury's recommendation and sentenced Joey to death for the capital murder conviction. It also sentenced him to serve 20 years in prison for each of the attempted murder convictions, ordering that he serve those sentences consecutively to his death sentence. Nick Ackland was tried before a jury on the charges that he intentionally murdered Charles Lamar Hemphill, Michael A. Baudette, Johnny Couch, and Brian Carter, and that he attempted to murder Ashley Rutherford and Michelle Hayden. Following a guilty verdict, the jury recommended by a 10-2 vote that Nick be sentenced to death by electrocution. On August 24, 1994, the trial court sentenced Nick to 20 years imprisonment for each count of attempted murder to be served consecutively and ordered him to pay a fine of $10,000 and a $10,000 victim's compensation assessment for each count. For the capital murders, the trial court sentenced Nick to death. But Corey Johnson apparently did not shoot anyone, and in fact, he told the others not to kill anyone, supposedly. So Corey was only convicted of murder, not capital murder, and only had to serve 15 years. 15 years for being a very large part of going and harassing and torturing and holding these kids at gunpoint for hours and humiliating them, and then his friends shooting and killing most of them. So, I don't know. I don't know. Corey was released from prison in September of 2011. In 2017, crews demolished the home that the cell phone murders happened in. The home was built in 1957, and after the murders in 1996, it has been unoccupied. Also, as of 2017, Nick Ackland and Joey Wilson are each being held at the Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore on death row. Each man has appealed over the years, but with no luck. There are 4 people whose lives become permanently interlaced over these 2 decades: Corey Johnson, Nicholas Ackland, Joey Wilson, and Candace Wilson. So we have a new name. Candace Wilson is the sister of Joey Wilson, and at the time of the 1996 murder, she was living with Nicholas Ackland, and they had a child together. Since the cell phone murders, Candace and Corey became very close, and in 2016, she was reportedly living with Corey after he had gotten out of prison. Reports from people who knew the couple say that Corey was very violent, but Candace wasn't anything like him. Some insinuated that maybe him being locked up had made him worse than he was when he went in. On November 20th of 2016, Candace was stabbed over 60 times with a pocket knife in her parents' home. Can you guess who stabbed her? Corey is being defended by Huntsville attorneys Michael Tewalt and Thomas Jarvian, who were appointed to the case. During a hearing in 2019, investigator Danoon testified Corey told police he and Candace had been arguing before she was killed. Corey did not provide specific details of the crime or argument, but told police that he thought Candace might be cheating on him or stealing from him. He said he could not take it anymore, and they got into an argument and he stabbed her. He was very emotional. He didn't go into great detail. He was crying and seemed upset. When Robert Wilson, Candace's dad, walked into the home, he saw Corey covered in blood and asked him, "What happened to my daughter?" And all Corey said was, "I'm sorry." Robert Wilson said he then walked into the house and found his daughter face down on her bed, covered in blood and not breathing. When emergency personnel first arrived at the scene, they found Corey, who had called 911, sitting on the porch. According to the testimony, Corey told emergency responders that they needed to lock him up because he was the one that had did it, and that if they didn't, something bad would happen. Johnson had cuts on his neck, chest, and arms when emergency personnel arrived, and according to testimony, the suspect had caused the injuries to himself. Huntsville police said he stabbed Candace Wilson on Del Norte Lane near Sparkman Drive. Candace was Corey's girlfriend, and police said the incident was domestic. A Madison County grand jury indicted Corey on Friday. He was charged with capital murder with no bond because he has been convicted for murder in the past 20 years. So apparently in Alabama, if you have been convicted of any other murder in the past in 20 years and you were caught again for another murder, you can be charged now with capital murder for the next murder that you committed. The sentence for capital murder is either the death penalty or life in prison without parole. Madison County Chief Trial Attorney Tim Gans says prosecutors don't plan to seek the death penalty if Corey is convicted. A trial date has not yet been set. So now Candace and Joey's parents are left with one child on death row for murder and one child who has now been murdered by one of the men who was convicted with their son of murder 20 years ago. As of 2019, the U.S. Supreme Court said that it will not hear the case of Alabama death row inmate Nicholas Ackland, who says his lawyer had an undisclosed conflict of interest that had caused evidence of childhood abuse to not be presented in court. Appellate attorneys wrote that during the 1998 trial, Nick's trial attorney wanted to show Nick had suffered childhood physical and emotional abuse from his father. Nick's father, who denied the accusation, threatened to stop paying legal fees in the case if that was done. The Alabama Attorney General's office argued there was no conflict because Nick was the one who indicated he did not want the abuse discussed in court. Most critically, the evidence showed that the sole reason for the trial counsel's failure to introduce evidence of the alleged abuse was that Nick expressly forbade them from doing so. That is about the end of the information that I could find. Nick and Joey still do not have an execution date set, and Corey is still waiting for his trial over Candace Wilson's death. Do you guys think he should have gotten off so easy the first time? Do you think that being locked up for 15 years played a part? What about him apologizing to her father immediately and crying and harming himself and begging them to arrest him? Seems like maybe he felt remorseful. Like maybe he mentally checked out and killed her and then realized what he did and kind of lost it, you know? Not using that as an excuse for his murder, but for maybe the emotions he was showing. Do you think that they should seek the death penalty? I wish that Corey Johnson would speak out and do an interview about everything that has happened so we could have a better understanding of where he was physically and mentally in the years and moments leading up and during each of these horrific crimes. Did he not know that those people were going to kill those kids in 1996? Why was he there if that's the type of thing those people would do if he's not interested in that? Also, when he got out of jail in 2011, where was he for the 5 years in between and what was he doing? I do want to say rest in peace to the 5 people who lost their lives in some way by knowing these men, and peace to their families and to the ones who survived and live with it every day. And as always, you guys comment, message me, email me, whatever you want to do. Let me know what you think about the case. I would love to hear your answers to the questions or your own opinions or questions that you have. If anyone knows him personally and would like to reach out, I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Other than that, you guys just be safe. Let me know what you want me to talk about in the future. Watch out who you hang around. That's about the only piece of advice I could give for this situation. Just, you gotta know who's in your company and what intentions they have. I mean, they stole someone's cell phone and then they killed someone over them reporting their stolen cell phone. So it's nothing these kids could have done other than just not ever knowing these people would have helped them, really. And that's sad. Sorry to end it on such a morbid note, but this is true crime, and we did just discuss a lot of murders of innocent teenagers, so, it's kind of appropriate, right? There's no point in rejoicing. However, we can rejoice in the fact that these people are in prison or on death row. I don't always have the utmost faith in the American justice system, but sometimes you just have to accept that this is all we have. This is the only option we have, is to just know these people are locked away. But anyways, like I said, you guys have a great week and be safe, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.